What's up guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Today I present to you episode 3 of my Bringer of Chaos challenge run. This episode covers the second half of chapter 2, starting with Podrick explaining the events of last episode to Dougal. Dougal says Podrick was supposed to capture the blade with the emerald core crystal, and Podrick admits he doesn't actually know what color emerald is. Dougal angrily explains emerald is green, and shows a very not green face as an example of green. Dougal then asks how many blades with green core crystals Podrick sees, but another soldier interrupts the conversation to announce Moradin's Special Inquisitor, Morag Ladair, has just arrived in Gormott. The scene then shifts to Rex, Pyra, and Tora, where the last episode ended. Tora says the other reason for saving Rex and Pyra is because he's always wanted driver friends. He finds the way drivers and blades work together fascinating, and wants to be Rex's sidekick. Rex asks if they can just be friends instead, and Tora happily accepts. Rex asks Tora if he knows where prisoners are taken so they can save Nia and Dromark. Tora suggests they ask around towns after they have something to eat. Pyra says she can cook something, and that leads to a tutorial for cooking. One of Pyra's field skills is called Pyra's Cooking, and it allows her to cook certain pouch items when in a kitchen. The tutorial gives you the ingredients for glitter bake, which isn't too useful of a pouch item but needed to be made to progress the story. It turns out Pyra is quite the chef, and everyone is satisfied with the meal. Tora wonders why the water from before had no effect on Pyra if she's a fire blade, and Pyra says her powers don't come from fire. Tora then questions why her powers look like flames, and Pyra says it's complicated. With that topic pushed to the side, Tora suggests they go around town searching for information now. Gramps says they're all probably wanted criminals by now, and that Pyra sticks out too much and would get caught. Tora has an idea. We see Dougal greet Morag in a very suck-uppy fashion. Bridget shows up and says she wasn't expecting Morag to arrive for another day. Morag says they have no time to waste if the Aegis has been found, but does not elaborate further on her intentions. Dougal asks how Morag knows about the Aegis, but she dismisses the question and says she will now speak with the driver from Torna, being Nia. Morag admits Nia looks different from her poster, and Nia makes an amazing comment about it. Morag questions Nia about her friends, and Nia says she wouldn't call Torna her friends. Morag says she was referring to a driver and blade, and Nia accidentally says their names. Back to our heroes, Pyra is wearing a disguise Tora gave her. Now that Pyra has no visible green on her, they go into town to gather information. On the way, I collected some items from a collection spot, and Skip traveled back to Torgal. Once there, Tora mentions that the chances of Rex having aptitude should be nearly 100% since he awakened Aegis already. Rex wonders where he would get a core crystal from, and Gramps pulls one out of his, well, somewhere. This core crystal is guaranteed to be a wind element knuckle claws blade, so that's what I got. The party notices the Ox Core shop is now open and decides to check it out. I got a critical up 2 Ox Core to refine as part of the tutorial, which increases crit rate by a multiplicative 12%. I also tried refining a Hunter's Chemistry Ox Core for faster max affinity, but I didn't have the necessary resources. I started asking around town for information about Nia. I only remembered one of the 3 people who had useful information, so I ended up having to talk to nearly every NPC. On the way, I stole from the Ardanian military, taking some of their core crystals for myself. I talked to a man on a bridge who said the captured person's name is Nia, and a young boy who said a prisoner was going to be executed. With all the information collected, I skipped travel back to Tora's house to discuss. Gramps and Tora said they'll need a solid plan, and Rex suggests a full-on attack. Pyra shuts down that idea quickly and suggests they use a large route to sneak into a cargo entrance. Tora has something else to show Rex and Pyra. It's an artificial blade! Tora says he always wanted to be a driver, but he doesn't have the aptitude to do so. Rex says Tora surely just has to try, and then realizes that Tora did try before. Tora claims to have had a nosebleed for 3 whole days and that he's lucky to still be alive. Back to the artificial blade, Tora says it was started by his father and grandfather, but his grandfather has since died and his father disappeared. Tora says he will finish the blade, become famous, and then surely his father will return home. Gramps points out that the blade looks complete and asks what else there is to do. Tora says he has to buy a few missing parts, but he has no money left. He asks for a generous donation from Rex, stating that the combat capabilities will be very helpful in rescuing Nia. Rex asks how much money Tora needs, and Tora says 60,000. Pyra offers to sell one of her earrings, but Rex refuses to let her do that. Rex says he'll raise the money himself, and Tora says he needs a perfect range sensor and 3 Bion connectors. I skipped traveled to Torgoth's entrance and walked over to a shop. The storekeeper Casa said the Bion connectors can actually be found by salvaging, and I got a quest for collecting them. After that, a Gormandi man walked up and said he'd give the party a perfect range sensor in exchange for taking care of some monsters. They agreed, and I unlocked a second collection quest. I skipped travel to Lasham Island, and walked past all the level 40 enemies that apparently weren't giving the man trouble to battle level 9 Crabble that was. Since I was 3 level higher, it went down pretty easily. Back in Torgoth, I told the man I took care of the Crabble and got the perfect range sensor. I went to Argentum for a bit to buy some cylinders, and went back to Torgoth to start salvaging with them. The first time I pulled up 2 chests on a crust dip. The crust dip didn't give much EXP, but the chest had 2 bion connectors total. The second round only had 1 chest, but thankfully had the third and final bion connector in it. I skipped travel back to Tora's house to finish constructing the artificial blade. Tora gets ready to activate the artificial blade, and introduces Poppy. He activates a switch which harnesses a lightning bolt in a very Frankenstein-esque way. But the first time Poppy activates, she has an interesting personality. Tora tweaks the settings a bit and reactivates Poppy. Pyra looks hopeful, Rex looks skeptical, but in the end, Poppy wakes up and greets Tora. Rex mentions how she was the first time, and Tora blames his grandfather for the settings. Poppy looks at Tora with suspicion, and Pyra asks if he's sure. Tora confirms his statement, and Pyra looks over at the open closet full of maid dresses. The cutscene shifts to show Dougal having a very egotistical conversation with himself, and how Morag is favored by the Emperor of Moradin. He tells Podrick to increase the number of guards so they can capture the Aegis before Morag does. Bridget was standing outside the consul's building, and overheard the whole conversation. Back in Tora's house, there's a tutorial for a minigame called Tiger Tiger. I used to be really good at it, but I've clearly gotten pretty rusty after not playing it for a year. I died without even getting to the end, but still ended up getting the high score on the machine. Playing Tiger Tiger allows you to get parts for Poppy, who is more customizable than normal blades via Poppy Swap. Poppy Swap allows you to not only equip Aux-Core equivalents, but change the blade arts, blade specials bonus effects, and stat mod for Tora. Poppy Swap is extremely useful, but I forgot the loadout I normally use for Poppy Alpha and therefore didn't use it for several episodes. After heading out of Tora's house, I completely forgot where to go and wandered around Torgoth for a while before stumbling across a story flag. There was a quick cutscene where the party looked at the Titan warship and the route that leads up to it. I made my way over to a semi-hidden pathway scaling down the wall, collecting some items along the way. On the route, Rex uses his anchor to pull himself up into the cargo entrance, and prepares to pull Pyra up. Rex struggles to hold the line, and calls Pyra heavy. Pyra is taken aback and steps off the anchor, causing Rex to fall backwards. Gramps scolds him and Pyra and Rex both apologize. Poppy flies up to where Rex is and pulls Pyra up. Now inside the ship, I made my way out of the ballast tank and into the main area of the ship. Poppy used her super strength to smash a vent, and I was able to reach the story flag. Poppy says she feels a blade is in the vicinity, and Rex correctly guesses it might be Dromark. Pyra melts a hole in Dromark's door with no thought to his safety, and the party sets off to find Nia. In the engine room, I killed some soldiers for EXP and turned off a steam valve, unlocking a chest. For some reason, I decided to try going through a steam cloud, which was stupid because it killed me. I made my way over to the chest I unlocked, which had a core crystal in it. I then found the door to the valve I needed to open, and passed the field skill checks to turn it off. On the second floor, I made my way to the next story flag, opening a chest containing a core chip along the way. Rex and Tora ran into some Ardanian guards, who called Nia a terrorist. Rex isn't going to let that fly, so they fight. The guards are level 11 and 12, the same as Tora and Rex, but since this is Bringer of Chaos, equal levels does not mean equal strength. The level 11 soldier wasn't even down to half health when Tora died, and Rex alone wasn't able to take both of them down. With that fight's victory being far from achievable, I upgraded Poppy's weapon with the core chip I got from the chest earlier for nearly quadruple the damage. I looked around Torgoth to find some quests. I found out a crane was broken, which required 2 more quests to complete. I decided to use the random core crystal that I acquired on Rex, but didn't get anything good. I skipped travel to Argentum and opened the expansion pass menu to receive everything, aside from the things I redeemed in episode 1. This gave me a ton of core crystals, including 25 legendary cores. I decided to use 5 on Rex. I got an Ice Ring common, Boreas, a Wind Pitball, a Water Hammer common, Agate, an Earth Great Axe, and Electra, a garbage rare blade with an electric hammer. I made my way down to the lounge area to get the Aboyant Core Crystal. This Core Crystal gives a Blade Name Cross set a very powerful Bitball blade, and the main blade I will be using for the foreseeable future once I get Nia back. Next I went to the return port to get the Divine Core Crystal. This Core Crystal will give a blade named Corvin, who has a unique weapon that's a clone of the Chroma Katana class. He has an evasion art and a smash art on every character, both of which are great qualities. Rex is generally pretty good with katana blades, so I used the Core Crystal on Rex. Corvin starts with very good stats, with great block and crit rates and amazing defenses. I swapped one of the driver arts for the evasion art, meaning Rex could get a guaranteed dodge when using the art. With that done, I skipped travel back to Torgoth to do some more quests. I talked to a man who was very concerned that his son hadn't come home, so I told him I'd go check. On the way, I got a quest relating to the earlier Crane quest, and continued on. I battled an armor to test out Corvin and Poppy's strength together, and though Tora died, I was able to build enough party meter to revive him and finish the battle. I used a love source on Rex, which is a pouch item that increased trust by a ton. This upgraded Corvin by 3 ranks and Pyra by 1 rank, meaning they both did more damage and had access to more skills. I decided to go back to Torgoth and buy a core chip for Corvin, which gave him much more damage and crit rate, albeit losing a bit of block rate. I accepted another nearby quest, and then warped to the Lasham Island to start the trek towards the Way Tree. I fought a Ferris on the way, and I was doing a lot of damage. After the battle, I gave Corvin the critical up to Oxcore, boosting his crit rate from 38% to a whopping 42%. I eventually made it to the quest marker, where several Gogls were standing around a tree, on top of which was the Gormati boy I came to find. I fought the 3 Gogls, all of which were level 9. Tora died since the occasional HP potion wasn't enough to keep him alive. I took down the first Gogl and revived Tora, though he died again shortly after. I took down the second Gogl and used Corvin's level 4 special on the third. Corvin happens to have the second strongest level 4 in the entire game, so the damage was crazy and the damage over time was a massive 351 per tick. After the battle was over, I talked to the boy and made sure he was alright, and gave them some confusion IV that they needed to bring home. I skipped travel to Torgoth, found I needed to get some Gormati walnut wood, and skipped traveled right back to the Way Tree area. I hopped down a hole and into a secret tunnel up to a little base. The Nopon there asked for a crazy amount of gold or some resources. I decided to trade resources and luckily had just enough muscle branches to trade. Back in Torgoth, I was able to finish the quest. I opened Poppy's affinity chart since she ranked up and unlocked a new skill. I started another quest, which just required me to buy each item from a store. After that, I needed to exit the menu and reopen it to buy a shop deed. Shop deeds can give useful bonuses like increased movement speed or EXP gain, but this one just increases item collection range. Buying the deed allowed me to finish the quest and get some EXP and SP. I received another quest, this one for getting certain items from salvaging. I activated a different quest that required me to talk to some people to gather information. On the way, I battled a new driver from the cutscene in the last episode. I almost beat them, but Rex died and I didn't have quite enough party meter to revive them. I climbed up a ladder and talked to the first person, who said the crane was attacked by skilled marksmen. I made my way onto the rooftops and talked to the second person, who said there were suspicious shadows by a tree on the outskirts. On the way to the third person, I accepted yet another quest. The third person was a Nopon, who said there were suspicious Turkans somewhere. With all the information collected, I made my way into the Noclia woods, where the Turkan were supposedly spotted. I battled the 2 Turkan, which were level 10 and 12. They went down pretty easily, though the fight took a while to finish due to their HP stat from Bringer of Chaos. I climbed up a ladder and opened a chest, then skipped travel back to Torgoth. I finished the quest, but sadly didn't get any EXP from it. I walked over to the inn and slept for some levels. I raised both Rex and Tora to level 13. I could have gone all the way to level 14, but I didn't want to level up any more than I had to, so I decided to try the fight at level 13. I skipped travel to the Titan battleship and went back to the Ardanian soldier fight. For some reason I decided to focus on the higher level one first. Tor died early on and I didn't have enough party gauge to immediately revive him. I charged up to level 4 on Corvin, then targeted the lower level soldier to use it. Corvin's specials have the highest damage ratios out of any blade outside of New Game Plus, so it demolished the soldier's health bar, immediately doing about 80% of his health bar and dealing 388 damage every 1.5 seconds. I revived Tora and focused once again on the level 12 soldier, but I didn't have much health left, so I died. I got close enough to victory that I decided to try again. This time started the same, targeting the level 12 soldier. This time I got Tora to use Poppy's level 1 on the soldier for a bit more damage before Tora died again. I once again used Corvin's level 4 on the level 11 soldier, and after the special he was down to about 15% health and taking 387 damage per tick. At this point, I focused on the level 12 soldier again while the level 11 one gradually died to the blade combo damage. The level 11 soldier died and Rex was still mostly healthy, so I revived Tora. This time went well since Rex had most of the aggro and a lot of HP left, so I took down the remaining soldier and won the fight. There's a cutscene where Nia is sitting alone in her cell, and has a flashback to being in the same situation before. In the flashback, the door opened and Jin appeared, holding his hand out to Nia. Back in the present, the door opens, but it isn't Jin who appears, it's Rex and Dromark. She says she didn't expect anyone to come for her. Rex recounts the second rule of the Salvager's Code, and holds his hand out for Nia. Tora says he found an escape route, and Rex catches Nia up a bit. Now I have a proper 3-person party of a damage dealer, a healer, and a tank. I received a level 1 access key, allowing me to open a certain previously locked door on the ship. I skip traveled to Torgoth, and then opened the blade menu to give some blades to Nia. From the legendary cores I got a Water Rain common, ironically the same weapon type as Dromark, Godfrey, an Ice Hammer and pretty bad blade, a Wind Axe common, Florin, a Femboy Earth Bitball and solid choice for the weapon class, and Finch, a Windhammer who's the mascot of a certain Xenotuber. I also used the Aboyant Core Crystal on Nia, giving her Cross Set, the best Bitball in the game and one of the highest DPS blades despite being a healer class. I engaged Cross Set, set her to be Nia's primary blade, and switched party orders so I would control Nia. I bought a core chip for Cross Set, increasing her attack and crit rate. I then slept at the inn for another level, knowing the upcoming fights would need more levels. It turns out Nia had way more bonus EXP than Rex or Tora, but I decided to keep them all the same level, getting them all up to 14. I'd switched out Nia's Bitball Topple Plus art for her Break art, which had a much higher damage ratio as well as driver combo utility. Now that I had a full party, I decided to get some revenge on Moonlighting Elwyn. This was the first demonstration of how Cross Set works. Cross Set has a skill called Gathering Sparks, which increases her damage for each potion she collects by 60%, with a cap of a whopping 500% increase. Despite Bitballs having a low auto attack stat among weapon classes, this increase can allow Cross Set to melt through enemy health bars. I charged up the art Dolphin Spin with auto attack cancels and then canceled the last one into the Dolphin Spin, which spawned a potion. I collected the potion, and my auto attack started doing more damage. Nia also had a healing art, which I used to recover some of Tora's HP. I inflicted Break, and Tora followed it up with a Topple, which is the next stage in the driver combo. I collected more potions and used Poppy's level 1 followed up with Pyra's level 2 for a Volcano Blade combo. Volcano has the highest damage ratio of any blade combo in the game, and it was on top of a Topple for some fusion combo benefits. Cross Set has another skill, Alchemy Adept, which increases fusion combo benefits even further. This led to a damage over time ratio of 342, and Elwyn went down shortly after. Elwyn dropped an Infinity Max Attack 1 Aux Core, which increases all damage by 30% when at max affinity. I skip traveled to Torgoth to refine the Infinity Max Attack Aux Core, as well as an Evasion Focus Aux Core. I finally got to a high enough level where the percentage HP increase was higher than the flat 250, so I gave the Abyss Vest to Rex. I gave an Auto Balancer to Nia, meaning if an enemy blocks an attack she won't be staggered. I increased Tora's HP on his affinity chart, as well as his dexterity and his healing from HP potions. I rematched the driver I battled earlier, this time with a full party and the power of Cross Set. I charged up a Dolphin Spin, cancelled into the art, collected the potion, inflicted Break, then collected some more potions that had spawned. My auto attack was doing over 170 damage without critting and over 210 with a crit. The driver went down easily, since I was a much higher level, but it was worth it for the small amount of EXP and the satisfaction of revenge. I decided to work on one of the quests I accepted earlier, so I went to the Nauklia timber site. I skipped travel to the Way Tree and walked up to the logging area. I talked to the people there to gather information and found out some stuff was stolen. I was asked who did it, and I guessed Turkin. That answer was apparently correct, and I spoke to someone who had come to the timber site, who told me there was a lot of wood by Seagull Fell. I skip travel to the Way Tree once more, and finally got to the Lida Oasis skip travel point. I opened a treasure chest for some money, and went to the quest marker. There were some Turkins standing by a hut, who decided to fight the party. They were pretty low level, so they went down pretty easily. I skip traveled back to the timber site, and it turns out that Turkin were quite the artists. Too bad we already took them out. I skip traveled to Torgoth and took the carving to the accessory shop, where they turned the carving into an accessory item. This finished the quest, and I got a lot of EXP, SP, Aux Cores, and Core Chips. The Core Chips weren't very good since they had a low crit rate, so I ended up not using them. I skip traveled back to the Titan battleship to reach the next story flag, fighting some innocent soldiers in their living area for EXP. I opened the door that was previously locked, and I got a short cutscene regarding a locked door. The controls were lacking power, so I needed to find a way up to the higher level to reactivate it. I tried opening another door, but it was locked. I found a treasure chest, opened it on the way, and found a level 2 access key on the floor. I went back to the locked door and opened it, allowing me to go up the stairs to the second floor. From there I went into the command room, opened a chest, and went down into the armory from the hangar. I activated a ramp to be able to access the second floor more easily in the future, and activated the circuit box for the control panel. I entered the hangar and was met with a cutscene. The party was making their way towards the exit when Dougal interrupts them. Dougal says he's trying to capture Pyra so he can use her power for himself, and that you can't argue with his logic. The party gets ready to fight, with Pyra standing in a discount JoJo's pose. The first phase went well, with me collecting potions to build up damage. At one point Rex stole one of the potions, but it was no big deal. The phase ended not long after that, along with the cutscene. Dougal hides behind his blades, since blades can regenerate any wound. Mia retorts that blades still feel the pain, and Dougal says he doesn't care if blades feel pain. Now I have all the more incentive to take him down. The second phase is technically a new fight, so I had to build up affinity and potions again. I used Corbin's level 1 for a bit of blade combo damage, though the ratio wasn't very high. I also used Pyra's level 1 for a bit of damage, and the ratio was higher due to Pyra's skill that increases blade combo damage. I used Poppy's level 3 when I had my level 4 nearly charged up, then tried to inflict break for a fusion combo but Dougal resisted it. I used Crossset's level 4, which created a huge damage ratio of 1090. Sadly, the damage was so high that Nia drew aggro and Dougal killed her. I didn't have enough party meter to be revived, so I lost the fight. I opened the Blade's affinity charts to level up what I could, then proceeded to try again. The second attempt went largely the same, collecting potions and using a blade combo from Pyra, this time on top of a break and followed up with a topple. The damage ratio was decent, but nowhere near the level Crossset reached with her level 4. My party meter disappeared when he enraged, which happens when he gets to half health. I used Corbin's level 1 for a bit of damage over time while I recharged my break guard. I inflicted break and Tora toppled, so I had to wait a bit to recharge the break guard again. I inflicted break again as Poppy used her level 3 for a stone plus break, then used Crossset's level 4 for a huge fusion combo on top of the stone plus break for a volcano plus break with a damage number of 1912, and it only ticked a couple times before Dougal fell. Following the battle was a cutscene, with Dougal's plans foiled. Rex mentions Nia's execution, and Nia says she was being taken to Mor Ardain and that this was all a trap. Tora says they should leave before reinforcements arrive, and the party makes their exit. I made my way out to the military base, where the party was ambushed by familiar blue flames. Brigid and her driver Morag step forward, and Dromar calls Morag the Flamebringer. She is the Special Inquisitor of Mor Ardain, and the most powerful driver in the Empire. This is an intimidating combination of strongest driver and strongest blade, a tough enemy even for the Aegis. Morag says she shouldn't have expected Dougal to be much of a fight, and Nia realizes she's the one who spread the rumors about the execution. Morag confirms those suspicions, and says the Emerald Core Crystal is a sign of the Aegis. She says Pyra has the power to destroy Allrest, and that she will not allow that to happen again. Rex doesn't believe Pyra destroyed the world, and questions Morag's intelligence. Morag says that 500 years ago during the Aegis War, 3 Titans were destroyed. Rex looks to Pyra for a comeback, but Pyra just looks downward with a guilty expression. Rex accuses Morag of wanting to use Pyra as a weapon, and Morag replies that she is specifically trying to avoid that scenario. Morag says she'll have to restrain Rex by force if he resists, and Rex makes it clear that Morag will not take Pyra from him. This leads to a boss fight against Morag and Brigid together. As usual with Crossset, I use my arts to build my specials, collecting as many potions as possible to build damage. I used Corbin's level 1 for some damage over time, and eventually got a random tutorial about level 4 specials. I accidentally pressed the A button too much to get rid of the text, and wasted my special charge on level 3, meaning I had to build it up all over again. The damage ratio was decently high though, since I had built up potion damage. I used Corbin's level 3 for some damage over time, which also had a pretty good ratio. I inflicted break and used Poppy's level 3 on top of the break for a fusion combo, then used Crossset's level 4 without a fusion combo. Even without the fusion combo, it did 1006 damage per tick, so Morag went down. Following the fight is a cutscene battle between Rex and Morag. Each time Rex takes a blow, Pyra seems to get hurt as well, which is unusual for blades. Rex declares that Pyra is more than just the Aegis or some kind of weapon. She's a living being with her own feelings. Rex holds his hand out to Pyra and pulls her up off the ground, and Rex says Pyra is somewhere she needs to go and nothing will stand in their way. He launches an attack at Morag, but Morag deflects it. Bridget tells her driver to stay vigilant, as Pyra has an unknown power. Morag replies that Bridget's flames burn stronger than Pyra's, but Pyra's have a hidden power within them. The party is getting tired, and Rex tries to come up with another plan. He remembers that Bridget is weak to water and notices a water tower. He tells the party to run, and they leave the military compound. Morag is hot on their trail and follows them out to the farming area. Rex launches a full power blast at Morag, who deflects it easily, but the flames start melting the water tower supports. Rex launches his anchor at the now weakened tower, and Poppy pulls the line to topple the tower. Morag realizes what Rex's plan is and dashes forward to stop him, but is blocked by Pyra and Dromark. Poppy and Rex pull the line, causing the tower to collapse and flood water all over Morag and Bridget. Rex and Pyra unleash a burning sword towards Morag, creating a huge steam explosion to cover their escape. Morag tells Bridget she feels slighted since the party held back in battle. Rex could have hit Morag with the burning sword, but he averted his aim at the last second. Morag decides they should let the party go, so she can gauge Rex's intentions when they meet again. The party is shown running away in the hills of Gormott, and Rex and Tora decide to set up camp. Nia bids them farewell, much to Rex's surprise. As Nia and Dromark are walking away, Rex shouts that he wants to reach Elysium. He says he promised to take Pyra to Elysium and that he owes her for saving his life. Half the world seems to be out to get them, and living space is running out. Rex says that if he can prove Elysium's existence, then he may be able to stop the coming wars. The battle with Morag made him realize that he's not strong enough to do it alone, and then Rex slaps Tora for dancing in his face. Nia questions Rex's belief in Elysium again, and Rex makes the smart point that Pyra is from Elysium and she's real, so it must truly exist. Nia tells Rex that he's either too nice or too stupid to realize that this could all be a lie, and Pyra could stab him in the back one day. Pyra says she couldn't do that because she doesn't have a knife. This act of oblivious seriousness seems to sway Nia, and she decides to join them. Nia says that if the legends are true, even people like her could live, but she doesn't elaborate. Now at a campfire, Pyra is tending to Rex's wounds. Pyra thanks Nia for the medicine, and Nia gives an iconic peace sign and smile. Rex notices that Pyra is injured as well, and bandages her arm. Pyra thanks him and points out that their injuries seem to be identical. The two of them watch embers fly from the fire, and Pyra says it's beautiful. Rex says it's probably because she made it, and then gets really flustered from the implications. Rex says she's just really good at making fires, and Pyra says it's what she does. There's a nice moment where she blows embers into the air, and we see the embers fly with the world tree lit up in the background. I would like to thank you all for watching this series, and I hope you continue to watch the future videos. And with that, the chapter's over, so I save the game.